She brings wealth and health to her audience by tackling hot topics around substance use disorder, mental health and wellness. Her mission, vision, and goal are to help you heal from your past trauma, inspire you to transform your body, mind, and soul so you can live your best life. Your board-certified psychiatric mental health doctor, nurse practitioner, trauma care maestro, and media analyst, your life ambassador, best-selling author, TEDx talk speaker, CEO of Pool of Bethesda Psychiatric Health in Arizona. Let's all welcome Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock. I'm an African Nigerian princess that's living in diaspora, Arizona. Those in Arizona know me as a board-certified psychiatric mental health doctor of nurse practice here, practicing psychiatry and mental health out here. Others call me your compassionate trauma care maestro. And of course, those who know me across the social media call me the princess in suburbia, of suburbia, whichever one. I'm just cool with it. If you have not gotten a chance to like my page, please go to drfumi.com. Of course, you can find me on the YouTube platform under the Princess of Suburbia TV, the Princess of Suburbia TV, or you can find my show on the International Diaspora Network TV on YouTube. For those who do the audio thing, who loves podcasts, Tear the Veil with Dr. Fumi, F-U-M-I, you can find it on most platforms, especially iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and most platforms, Spotify, and most platforms. So thank you for allowing me to come into your presence today. What do I want to talk about today? I want to talk about trauma, right? I want to talk about why it's important that we do not underestimate each other's trauma. We do not underestimate people's trauma. We do not make light of it. We do not joke about it, because there's nothing actually funny about trauma. I know a lot of people that have passed on, that have completed suicide, that have been quite miserable, that have attempted, that have done all kinds of sorts because of their trauma. And so when we live in a society where we cannot exercise empathy, and that when we hear other people's stories, and the first thing we want to do is make light of it. The first thing we want to do is joke about it. The first thing we want to do is just to, kind of ridicule them. I think that's a sick kind of community, if you would agree with me. Okay, so I want to talk about the impact of trauma, that it is essential for us all to understand what trauma can do to somebody. Say, for instance, if someone had witnessed somebody die, if someone had seen somebody had an accident, a ghastly accident, let's say, for instance, Harry and Meghan, right? We all know that they live in the U.S. now, and there was a situation where they came into New York to do an event, and when they got into, I guess, a cab or something like that, they had paparazzi that was following them, right? They had a lot of paparazzi that was following them, and perhaps they might have talked about, it was like 2 hours, but that was not the main message of their experience. Can I say that again? The fact that it might not be 2 hours in New York, that's not the main message of the experience. And so for people to look around and start saying, their information is different from what the cab driver said, we need to stop that and really sit and understand that this was somebody who was young, and I think from what I heard, it's almost 26 years ago when the mother, Diana, passed through a ghastly accident. Because we find him and the wife and the children going all over the place, doesn't mean that he's over his trauma, y'all. And every time anything close to what took the life of his mother happens, it's quite possible that he might overreact. it's quite possible that that would trigger the past. And so for them to be afraid when they saw lights and cameras around them, it is not unusual for those who might be dealing with trauma. It is not unusual for him to want to protect the wife and protect their privacy and protect themselves when they see paparazzi around them. And so for people to sit around and be making light of it and joking like, oh, they lied about 2 hours. Who cares about the 2 hours? Let me tell you something. It might have been 1 minute, and that 1 minute would look like 10 hours to them because it's a flashback of what happened in the past. It's a flashback of trauma that he's probably still dealing with, and perhaps he might think maybe I've overcome it, but that this experience will help him to know, maybe I'm not done yet. I'm not finished yet with my trauma work. And so it's important that we need to exercise empathy when we see people who have been triggered with trauma. After all, we've all been through over 2 years of COVID. Some people perhaps are even still dying as I speak. I've known patients in places that I've worked. I've known people personally that have passed due to COVID. And so when I hear people still passing, even though we have all the tools now, still passing from COVID, you know what it does? Even as a psychiatric provider, it takes me back. I get flashbacks. And who knows, without my knowledge, without my background, without my expertise, who knows how I would have responded finding out that somebody just passed. And so I say this to us, America, Nigeria, all over the world, if you are watching, let's not underestimate people's trauma. You don't want somebody to question your trauma. You don't want somebody to question how you feel about your trauma. Right now in America, most women are besides themselves, rightfully so, because a lot of rights are being taken away, right? And we're saying that America is a leading country, and yet we have people under the guise of the Bible, which I read, just getting crazy and just pulling away rights, and yet they're saying they're freeing people and they're taking away rights. They're making men make decisions about things that they absolutely know nothing about. And so, when something happens and we see on the TV how a woman almost passed, if I had been through that, guess what's going to happen? Trigger. Now, does that mean that if somebody sees me sitting next to me and see how I react because of the trigger, is it right to make light of that? Is it right to say, well, it's no big deal. After all, it's just North Carolina. Or after all, it's Arizona. Or after all, it's New York. So it's no big deal. Get over it. When you make light of people's trauma, you're telling them to get over it. And that's just not cool. So, do not, never, ever underestimate people's trauma. The lesson we should have learned from that story about Meghan and Harry, like, wow, this young man is still traumatized by the passing of the mother. And when you are able to see it that way, then you will not focus on what he or she said about 2 hours, 3 hours, or what the cab driver said, the second cab driver said. That's not the point. The point is he felt that he needed to protect his wife. He was scared. He was triggered. Can we see that? Can we all see that? That that was his response to the paparazzi was a trigger from what that young man passed through when he was young and he lost his mom. That is the message that I took out of that. Not the 2 hours, not all that, because frankly, if you were kidnapped, you would have been in a place for 10 minutes. That 10 minutes will look to you like 10 hours. So let's not focus on minor things, but focus on the major things that we could use to actually help our own kids. Because frankly, our teenagers, our young ones in college, they are constantly being traumatized by all the foolishness that our so-called leaders, our professional experts are displaying across social media and media platforms. Never underestimate people's trauma. So, until next time, America, until next time, Nigeria, until next time, my people all over the world, be inspired, be motivated, be of sentimental value. Understand that you are the hero in your life story. Do not allow anybody to rewrite your story for you, just like what we just talked about. Your trauma is your trauma, and do not allow anybody to underestimate what your trauma is. If you haven't subscribed to me, go to YouTube, The Princess of Suburbia, or the International Diaspora Network. You'll find my channel there. You'll find my show there, which is often called Life Rehab TV. If you haven't listened to my podcast, please go to Tear the Veil with Dr. Fumi, F-U-M-I. I want you to subscribe. I want you to comment. I want you to share. I want you to help me to take this program to the next level. It's bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Tear the Veil with Dr. Fumi. We hope you have enjoyed being a part of today's show and that we have helped you in shining. For further information, you can visit us at drfumiPsychdNP.com and pobpsychiatry.com.